everyone. My name is Mia, and as he was saying about the Democratic Committee, this church is actually in a district called 2-1 district, and so I'm actually on the committee for the district that this church sits in. So we're here tonight basically to, the book says that all I get and get an understanding, so we're here to get an understanding. We have any questions? We have our candidate here. He's going to give us his views, and we also have the opportunity to ask any questions of him and any questions about the voting process itself. So I'm just going to do a brief introduction, and we're going to let Tim have as much time as he needs. Tim Alexander is a civil trial attorney for Helmer, Connolly, and Castleman, who concentrates on civil rights, employment discrimination, whistleblower, and other civil litigation. He is admitted to practice in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, the United States District Courts for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania and New Jersey, and the United States Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. Tim earned his JD from Rutgers University School of Law in Camden, New Jersey. He also earned an MBA from Drexel University, LeBeau College of Business, and a BS summa cum laude in Business Management from Drexel University. During his private practice career and before joining Helmer, Connolly, and Castleman, PA, Tim was an assistant city solicitor for the Civil Rights Unit of Philadelphia Law Department. He successfully tried civil rights matters in the Philadelphia Court of Common Pleas and the United States District Court for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. Tim also served as an assistant district attorney in the trial division for Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, where he worked as a major trial attorney. Tim had a long and distinguished career in law enforcement, retiring after 27 years as a detective captain for the Atlantic County Prosecutor's Office in Mays Landing, New Jersey, where he oversaw the criminal investigation section. Tim is a legal advisor to Gloucester County chapter of the NAACP. Additionally, he was a member of LeBeau College of Business, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Board of Advisors. Tim also presented on the TED platform on racial justice in America titled My I Can't Movement. Tim has been married to Anna Cannon for 35 years, settling in Galloway Township for over 30 years, where he raised 3 children. Today, Tim is the Democratic nominee for the 2nd Congressional District of New Jersey. And so
Here's
now
what I
give you
found.
Tim Alexander.
Based on Mia's reading of my bio, I am 102 years old. and I want my whole heart thanks to St. Paul, to Pastor Ransom Darwin and his lovely wife, and of course Mia for setting this up for us. I want to take a few minutes to tell you a little bit about some other aspects of my background. Can you hear me in the back?
Yes.
Okay, I want to tell you a little bit more about my background, and then I'll tell you what I want to do for the district, and then I want to hear from everybody in this room, because this is why we're here. So at 18 years of age, I entered the police academy. That's why I have such a long career. Unfortunately, I didn't make it through my first time, and I was accosted by law enforcement. You want to talk about irony, there it is. Where they were shot at, I was assaulted, and I was charged with a crime I didn't commit. So I used that experience, and I got to tell you that, by the way, I no longer wanted to be in law enforcement, but it was my grandfather who convinced me to go back and make change from within, and that's why I did. But I used that experience in my life, in my career, to help me recognize when I saw abuses occurring and have the courage and strength to speak out against it, and I did that my entire career. When I left the prosecutor's office, I went to the prosecutor's office in Atlantic County. I went to the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office where I prosecuted cases. And again, I started seeing inequities and unfairness in the way we were sentencing individuals. So once again, I decided that I had to make change, answering the call of my grandfather. And so I decided to become a civil rights attorney. My stint with the Philadelphia Civil Rights Unit was to learn the other side of the work. And I did that for a little less than a year, but I was one of the busiest trial attorneys in that unit, where I tried more cases, I did more arbitrations, and I did more mediations in my 8 months there than that team had done in years. And the reason I did that is because I saw a benefit to moving those cases along and not making people linger when they were wrong and they had a real injustice. So that sparked me to go into the private side, where I represent people in that very same situation, having that knowledge again of law enforcement, prosecution, and civil rights defense. And I like to say, when I walk into a courtroom, there's not a chair in that room that I haven't sat in except for the judge. And I have no desire to be a judge, so there it is. And that gives me a unique perspective about making change from within. And when I saw what was going on in our country in the year of 2020, coming to a head, because it's always been going on, but coming to a head, again, I saw a need to make change. When I saw, Mia talked about my TED Talk was on what happened to Derek Chauvin. And when I saw a 19-year police veteran, I meant to say George Floyd. When I saw a 19-year police veteran, Derek Chauvin, murder somebody for the whole world to see, I knew we had to make change, and we need to make it a long time ago. So I wrote, this is before I decided to run for office, I wrote a training program, and reforming the way we train law enforcement in the state of New Jersey. And I sent it out to everybody I knew, and I was a captain when I retired, so I had quite a few contacts. I didn't have that many friends because nobody got back to me. And the reality is I started thinking, okay, well, they're not going to listen to me because I'm retired and I'm on the plaintiff side of things. How can I make a change? And I decided to run for office. And I decided that Congress was going to be the seat that I pursue, because I believe that we can make the most change in Congress. Then I started doing some more research, because I knew that's my issue, but it may not be yours. What else do we need in this district? And I was appalled to learn how little we receive, how much money we pay. $25 billion a year, folks. And by the way, every fact and figure I give you, you can go to the internet and you can fact check. $25 billion a year of our money from New Jersey goes to Washington and stays there. So that equates, for every $1 we send to Washington, we get 73 cents back. Now, that may not sound like a bad bargain until you look at New Mexico. For every $1, they get $4.34 back. Or Michoacano State, Kentucky, for every $1, they get $2 back. You know who's paying for that? We are, New Jerseyans. We are dead last on the list of the amount of money we receive back. That to me was appalling. And given the amount of taxes that we have to pay, and the various forms that we have to pay it, I don't think that's a good bargain. And so I started working on coming up with economic a blueprint that would help our district. And I was very fortunate that people before me had already decided to do that, and eventually they passed the bipartisan infrastructure plan. $1.2 trillion. And my plan is to bring as much money as back home as possible, to put the money into our district. And I say that on purpose, because when you look at the money that comes to our state, and no offense to anybody else in the state who's fighting for their districts, but it doesn't come here. It goes up north. For example, the CARES Act, this state got $10.66 million. At the time, our district was 8 counties, 4 full counties and 4 partial counties. Collectively, we received less money than Essex County alone. And that was appalling to me. So I want to make sure the money comes home, and we have specific plans that will go where the money will go. Repairing our roads and our bridges are a no-brainer. But did you know, in some instances, we are paying through county taxes monies for bridge maintenance that should come from federal dollars. So imagine if we could get, and I'll use Atlantic County because I don't have one in Cumberland County identified yet, but Atlantic County, there's a Dorset Avenue Bridge. It's in Ventnor, New Jersey. $600,000 a year for maintenance. If we got that money back because it's over intercoastal waterways, which makes it a federal issue, that would take $600,000 a year off our tax rolls in Atlantic County. Let's go to Cape May County. Down in Cape May, they have a bridge, I'm not sure of the street name, but it's down in the dock area. Same exact thing, hundreds of thousands of dollars being spent that should be federal dollars. We have the money in the bipartisan infrastructure plan. We just need somebody that's going to fight to bring the money home piece by piece. That's one piece. Another piece over in Salem County. They have a river over there that needs to be dredged. If they get the river dredged, they can open up a facility that's going to manufacture the motorheads for wind turbines. That's 1,000 permanent jobs. 1,000 permanent to 3,000 jobs in the construction phase. 1,000 permanent jobs that we can have over in Salem County. And if you haven't been to Salem City lately, I'm going to invite you to take a ride through. They need the help and they need it now. And I want to make sure that the jobs stay local, so I went to a seminar out there and I met with the company along with other people, and except for our congressman, and I asked the question flat out: how do we know that the jobs are going to come local first? Well, the response was, we're working with local clergy. So I called them out. Who are you working with? I said, Kevin Peterson. Reverend Dr. Kevin Peterson in Petrickstown over in Salem County is a 25-year retired law enforcement officer. I know him. We work together. I called him out. He told me it's absolutely true. He invited me down to the church, and he laid out the plan for how they're going to recruit local people first. That was really an inspiring moment for me, that every single proposal we have will have written in that you have to have local talent first. Because right there in Salem, you know those jobs are going to go to Pennsylvania and Delaware if we don't fight. So we got to make sure that we take care of home, we take care of getting back our $25 billion or pieces of it. Come over to Atlantic County again, we have the airport down there. Third largest runway in the nation, folks. Third largest runway. They have one terminal. One terminal. And it's, what's today, Monday? I think it's called Spirit Airline. Last week it was Frontier, the week before that JetBlue. I don't know who they are, but I know they suck. All right? So I don't like flying on them, and the only way we're going to change that is bring some competition in. And we do that by opening up that airport and expanding it, and we have to make it more attractive. Our economic engine in South Jersey is Atlantic City. Although the money's getting carted out of the state, out of the area, it's still our economic engine. And the way we make it more attractive is we make it easier for people to get off a plane and get to Atlantic City. Well, there's an idea. If we tunnel underneath the runway, there's a train station on the other side. We can connect it, and then we get some of that $25 billion of that infrastructure money for light rail, and we make a light rail line just from the airport to Atlantic City. So you could conceivably get off a plane in 20 minutes be in Atlantic City. That's going to make it more attractive. And somebody hit me with an idea from an audience like this, and they said, well, what? Why would you stop there? You were talking about the port over in Salem County. How about the port here in Atlantic City? I said, well, they have a clamming port where they have clamming vessels. He says, no. Why don't you get some of that money, help us build a port over on the boardwalk for cruise ships to dock. And that'll bring in a whole new audience of people, whole new economic boost to the economy in South Jersey. And I thought it was a brilliant idea. So we've been working out how we could get it done. We have the money, and I'll fight for it, but we got to make sure it's a practical idea. I'm not there yet, but that's one more. And the more I talk to people, the more I hear about this. By the way, something for the entire district. Electric vehicle busing. We have no electric vehicle busing hubs or terminals in the state of New Jersey. I want us to be the pilot for the entire state. Start here, employ people here, expand the routes here. My wife, who just walked in, grew up in Brockmanville, New Jersey, Salem County. She lived on, and my two sister-in-laws, they lived on Gershel Avenue. She said she's never seen a public transit bus come down there. Imagine if we could get a lighter, smaller, quieter bus to hit all these areas to get people to some of these jobs we're talking about developing. Right? And these are good jobs, by the way, union jobs that have benefits. So that's what I'm fighting for. That's my purpose, that's my mission for the economy. Now, there's been a little bit of a shift. We know in this country, for some bizarre reason, Republicans have attacked women. They are going out of their way to deny women equal access to health care. And that's got to stop. I use the example all the time. If me and this young lady were in Tennessee today, and we both had a disease that affects our central nervous system, and there's medication available for us to help us with our condition. I get it as a man. She can't, because that medication can cause a termination of pregnancy. Now, how bizarre is that? I am a civil rights attorney. My job is to fight for the Constitution. I can tell you that the court got it wrong. Plain and simple. I do not put myself on the level of a Supreme Court justice, but they're wrong, and wrong is wrong. They could have went with the Fourth Amendment to protect person. It literally says person in the Fourth Amendment. Protect your person. And they denied that. But if they were confused, they could have went with the Ninth Amendment, which says, if we can't figure it out anywhere else and it's a fundamental human right, then go with the Ninth Amendment. I think he wrote 2 lines in a footnote about the Ninth Amendment. And that was appalling to me. So, we can't depend on the courts to do it, but Congress can. And I will fight every single session in Congress, co-sign or write, whatever bill that finally makes this country recognize that women and men are the same, and we have to treat each and every single one the same, and you have the same rights. Plain and simple. It's beyond belief, well, given our history, our atrocious history, that we don't protect women's reproductive rights or access to health care. Plain and simple. So those are 2 of the 5 key issues. Of course, police training reform still remains at the forefront for me. Protecting our veterans and giving them access to health care, that they can go anywhere they choose with their VA card, to break up that backlog at the VA clinics and hospitals. Allow them to take that card. You know, there's a saying going that a Republican hasn't seen a war he hasn't liked yet. But when it comes to taking care of the veterans when they come back home, no, we can't do that. Jeff Van Drew voted against veterans twice just in the last 6 months, where they were eligible veterans automatically be enrolled in VA system, and the access to enhanced medical treatment for exposure to burn pits. And that bill, by the way, passed. Both bills passed, but it needs to be immediately modified. And I don't have any of my brethren in the Democrat Party or Republican talking about it. The reality is that we are thinking about veterans in the theater, the Gulf War theater, but we're ignoring our veterans who served in Vietnam. And the veterans who served in Vietnam, just so you know, they were exposed to burn pits directly because they had to burn the body parts, they had to burn the fecal matter that was in the outhouses, and they're leaning over that, staring it up as it burns, and we left them out. I will fight to get them included immediately upon entering Congress. And lastly, Medicare is not least, but is last. Medicare, if nothing else, I want to accomplish this one goal: to get Medicare, Congress, and everybody else to recognize that your teeth, your eyes, and your ears are attached to your body. There should be one plan. Plain and simple. One plan. To remove all these Medicare Advantage nonsense things. It makes 0 sense. It's placating to the insurance industry and is at our detriment. Medicare is not a handout. It's not an entitlement. You pay into it. It is something that you've earned. And you should not be penalized or punished because you dare to collect it. Nor should you have to get other supplemental insurance to cover things that are all part of the human body. It's nonsensical to me, and I will do my level best to fix that. So there's some other things I want to talk about. I don't want to get ahead of my skis tonight. We can talk about decriminalizing marijuana. I hope you have some questions about that on the federal scale, because that's very important, and it's going to give our young folks some opportunities to be entrepreneurs. I have a segue into business. I want to come up with a whole new business grant program. You heard Mia tell you my background. I have an MBA, and taking SBA loans out to start a business is a recipe for disaster. I used to teach introduction to entrepreneurship at Drexel University, and the first thing I would tell the students is this: if you're not prepared to fail, then get out of this class. Because the majority of new businesses fail. And when you take loan money to do that, you're setting yourself up for failure. We could give you a grant in hopes that you will have some success and get you going, And so if you, you know, a successful business looks like this. You take it from nothing, you make a mountain out of it, and then you sell it. That's a successful business. And I want to help everybody get there, but when we handicap people, and it scares people from even trying because they don't want to end up in debt with nothing to show for it, we don't get anywhere. And folks, COVID decimated our district. Decimated. Caused businesses that have been in families for decades to close, go away. There's so much opportunity here. Why are we waiting for outsiders to come in and take our opportunities when we could take care of people right here? In Cumberland County, in Salem County, in Atlantic County, in Cape May County, in Gloucester County, in Ocean County. There's so many opportunities, so many things we can do. We just need a hand up from time to time. So with that though, and I can keep going on and on and on, some of the things I want to do, but I want to hear from you. I'm going to open it up for questions or comments or concerns, and please, you don't have to put any filters on with me. And I don't care that this is being broadcast. You go ahead and ask whatever questions you want to ask. Any way you want to ask. Nobody?
I'm just gonna say one thing.
Okay. There we go.
I think everybody is, your constituents, you ought to know what being true has done and not done. When you're talking about voting against these, that's like the burn benefits, I mean, like my gosh.
So we have, and I don't know if, so let me throw this out there. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and probably some other stuff I don't even know. And what we're doing is we're putting out Van Drew's voting record and how he's voting against his own interests. We put out, because we have 12 pages of no votes. And folks, here's the thing. Jeff Van Drew voting no to some of these programs does not save us one dime in taxes. Not one. So why? Why are all the programs going to other states and other areas? Why are people fighting for the lion's share in the other districts in our own state? And we are denied. Because we have a congressman who's figured it out. He's a smart character. Saying no means he don't have to do anything all day long. He can wear a snazzy suit, he can show up at ribbon cuttings, he can take credit for things, but he don't have to work. No is the easiest path you can follow. Yes, and I will try means you gotta work. You gotta perform. You gotta produce results. Because people call you out, right? They'll say, hey, you said you were gonna do it. You guys are gonna do it to me. You're gonna say, when I come back to you for re-election, hey, you said you were gonna do. And if I don't have proof of trying, you have to fire me, right?
Yeah.
Seriously. And so I guarantee you, I don't wanna get fired. I'm gonna work. And the way I see Congress in the House, it is literally the hardest job you can imagine. If you do it. If you do it. If you want to go there and just hang out, have steak dinners, raise some money, appear on Fox News or CNN or MSNBC, whatever your flavor is, I guess it's not a bad life. If you're in a nice, safe district, you can do those wonderful things if your character is such that you don't want to work. I want to work. I've worked my entire life. I started right here in Vineland ShotRite at 14 years of age on Delsey Drive. I was in a WESET program at Vineland High School. So my bus, I went to school in the morning, my bus brought me here at 12 o'clock in the afternoon instead of taking me home. And I worked. And I had one of the best jobs in the world. I started off pushing cars, so I'm not gonna lie. It sucked. But eventually I got promoted to being a clerk. I was working in the produce department. Some of these people in the back know about that, right? I was in the produce department, but guess what else? At 16 years of age, I was in the union. By the time I graduated high school, I was making $11.72 an hour. I was making more money than my teachers. Think about that. On Saturday after 4, double time. All day Sunday, double time and a half. I was making the dough, and I was loving it. That's because of unions. But my point is, I worked my entire life. I have no desire to change. And my poor wife sitting back there, she'll probably take the mic in a second and tell you, as much as she wants me to retire, it's not in the future. So I will work, and when I come back for re-election, I will have a record for you. But if I don't, you have my permission. I will not come back with excuses. I will tell you who's in the way. I'll tell you what we could do about it, but I'm gonna show you what I've been doing for a year and a half. Because this is unfortunately the way Congress is. You get about a year and a half to work and then you gotta start campaigning again. So, yes ma'am.
I'm excited for when you win the V-Life family, I'm very excited about that. My thing is, I've lived in Vineland all my life, pretty much. When I spend my money goes to Mount Laurel, Cherry Hill, Morristown. It doesn't come back to Vineland. We need something in Vineland for it being the largest city per square mile. We just need something here. Our kids need something, some type of activity, Boys and Girls Clubs. To me, I think that's biased, because I think they don't want to work as hard for the kids that have behavioral issues. I think they want good kids so it can just like slide them pretty much to the top, as far as, even though I know it's a private owned organization, still we just need something a little bit more for our kids and the city of Vineland.
Okay, so, and thank you for your comment. I want to be clear, my job is I'm on a federal level. And a lot of things that came to mind when you were talking were state level things, but that doesn't mean I can't help. If there's a program out there that we can do, my job is to fund it, to find the money for it. I can't do it. I have to get, and this is a big piece of what I'm going to come back to you with. We have legislative teams. This is LD1. Over in Atlantic County is LD2. Cape May is LD1, and I believe it's LD4 or 5 up in Salem, correct? These legislative teams are the ones who make things happen. My job is to get the money. And by the way, all 3 of our districts are Republican senator and assemblymen. I think one exception in 4, right.
1 through 3 are.
So, it's gonna be difficult, but you're gonna help me, and this is how. You're gonna say, and you just said, hey, we don't have anything here to allow me to spend my money back here at home. Kind of like the Black Wall Street concept. Love that, by the way. And so we want to bring the money back home and spend it here. What can we do? And we start identifying things, and we need the legislative districts or teams to do them. If they don't do it, and I have the money waiting for it, then I need your help to embarrass them and publicly go out there and say, why won't you do this? Congressman Alexander has found the funds for us. Either he's lying or you lying. Which is it? And I guarantee you, I'm not going to lie to you. So when we get there, I'll be back to talk to you about that. Say if there's a problem, I can't get this through because the legislative teams won't do it, you're going to help me out. And that goes for everybody in this room. Come on, folks. I know you got some ideas. Yes, Mr. Diamond.
I think that you're a good person to bring people together on, criminal justice, racial justice, and safety in the community, given your background. So that's one thing that you totally have going over Van Drew. And the second thing I want to comment on is those electric buses, because, this state is not terribly well organized as far as, South versus North. And, the electric buses being clean offers an opportunity to get the state more integrated. You can have those buses on the road, take cars off the road, and, traveling without pollution. So, and obviously, you're building enough buses, and it's a national thing too. So you're gonna get a whole lot of other congressmen or women working with you. So, and of course, General Motors or whoever will build the buses. So, I think that's a really top priority, in my opinion, to work on.
So, to your point about I'm going to work in reverse order, the electric buses, we won't be the first in the nation to do this. There's other states that do it. Florida's been doing it for, at least in Disneyland, for decades. So, but we'll be the first in Jersey to do it on a large scale And really, the goal here isn't necessarily replace the diesel buses. I want to enhance the system so we have more opportunities for more routes, more opportunities for more drivers, more opportunities for more mechanics. So I want us to have those terminals here to charge them, to work on them, because I see it as an opportunity to employ more people. And to your other point about bridging people, folks, every single thing I propose to you is for every single person in this district. I do not have blue ideas or red ideas. I have ideas for the people in the 2nd Congressional District to help make our lives better. Yes, they're coming from ideals born through democratic values and principles, but they're the ideas that everybody can get behind. When you talk about putting people to work and building out your economy, who's going to be opposed to that? Well, maybe Jeff. And when you talk about our veterans and our seniors, who's going to be opposed to that? Well, maybe Jeff. But we're not, and that's my whole point. He does not represent us. That rhetoric that he spills all the time about the southern border is dog whistle racism. He does not represent who we are. We are a very diverse district. We have a working class district. We have people who just want to do what's right by their family and have a great opportunity to thrive and to grow. That's who we are. So I want to make sure I represent every single one of you in this room, not just some of you. But thank you, Lee, for the question. Yes, sir.
Thank you for your years of service in law enforcement. Where do you stand at on defunding the police and also the rhetoric that we're hearing on now defunding the FBI? Where's your stand on that?
So the question is, and I know that some voices carry, but for the late Facebook Live that has to use the mic. So the question was, where do I stand on defunding the police and defunding the FBI? And I think they're equally insane, right? Now, it's not because I'm biased that I was 27 years in law enforcement, or because my daughter followed my footsteps and she was in law enforcement, she was a police officer in Camden, or my mother who was a correction officer right here in Cumberland County. It's not that we have 3 generations of my family of law enforcement. It's because we want to be safe. We want to feel safe. We want to be protected. We can fix the problems in law enforcement. We have, first of all, look how far we've come in law enforcement. If you don't know the history of law enforcement, let me tell you. Police officers were formed in this country to be slave patrollers. And over time, they armed themselves. And over time, they became the private security, if you will, paid for by public dollars for the rich oligarchs, the elites. And again, over time, we started having hearings about corruption in law enforcement, and we started weeding out some of that stuff. And over time, we start coming up with standardized policies called through accreditation program that brings us to today, for the vast majority of law enforcement are good, honorable people. They want to serve their communities. But we do have some holdovers. We do have some people who came in for nefarious purposes. Particularly, we can remember it during the Civil Rights Movement, there was a huge push to get law enforcement officers in the ranks to push racist ideas, to treat people of color as lesser than. And some of that nonsense still lingers, and we have to weed it out. So I've come up with a part of my training reform plan. The first piece of it requires for every single person who wants to be a law enforcement officer in a community has to serve at least 1 year in community service before being eligible to be a police officer in that community. So before we give you the power, the badge, and the gun, before we give you one paycheck, you're going to come and you're going to learn the streets, you're going to learn the people. You're going to learn the culture. Because if you take a young person who grew up in inner city, say in parts of Atlantic City, and you stick them over in Millville or Linwood, they're not going to know the culture. Or Laurel Lake, they're not going to know the culture, and vice versa. So we have to have a commitment for community service where you at least have an opportunity to learn the culture, you learn the people, you learn the citizens, and then we'll put you through the training program. The training program itself is going to be expanded from current 5.5 months to 18 months. We're going to make some money available that departments can return officers to uniforms and not to the baseball caps and boots and all the other nonsense that they wear. And we're gonna demilitarize. Now, let me tell you this. This is all a grand scheme, right? To weed out dysfunctional norms in law enforcement. I cannot force, as a member of Congress, I cannot force police departments to do this. But what I can do is say, if you do this, we're gonna give you some money. So that reverses the defunding, and we're gonna increase funding, and we're gonna cover the cost of you having to have somebody in training for 18 months. Folks, as a retired law enforcement officer, I can tell you as a law enforcement executive, the worst thing we used to get were unfunded mandates, where the state or the feds would come down and say, you gotta do X, Y, Z, and didn't give us any money to do it. It was almost impossible to do with today's budgets. So we're gonna make sure that that's not the argument that they could raise. We're gonna make sure that your communities don't suffer. And by the way, we didn't talk about taxes, but I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm not gonna be in favor of increasing a single tax on people in New Jersey. We are overtaxed, we are taxed to the hilt. So where do I get the money? Every single thing I propose has a funding source. My law enforcement plan, there's $6 billion every single year in federal grant money for law enforcement training and other parts of law enforcement. I'm gonna ask to pull some of that money to fund this project. I'm gonna sit down with law enforcement executives all the way down to patrol officers, and we're gonna come up with a viable schematic, if you will, on what this is gonna look like, and make sure that it's feasible and that it's well funded. And when you talk about defunding the FBI, it's absolutely ludicrous. And I simply turn to any one of those people who say defund the FBI, tell me just 3 things the FBI does. You want to take their money away, just tell me just 3. And don't let them go to the internet, just give me 3. And if they can't answer it, then knock it off with the defunding of anything. It's not about that, it's about keeping you safe. But here's the thing, when it comes to law enforcement, we have to move away from policing on our streets, and we have to move to service, because that's what we want. We want service. We want people to do their job, but not to police us. All right, this is not a giant correctional facility where you got to make sure we're locked in. You don't get to put us against the wall or pat us down just because we're standing there. Those days are gone. And through policy, and part of the qualifications for this money is that you have to be an accredited agency. There's accreditation programs for every law enforcement agency out there. You have to be an accredited agency in order to receive the funds, but the funds will not be competitive. In other words, Millville won't be fighting for Bridgeton, and Bridgeton won't be fighting for Millville's funds. If you do these things, we will give you the money. Nationwide. It's gotta be. In order to weed out these functional norms, and some of these things, by the way, is if, I'm gonna pick on Mr. Brown for a second here. Mr. Brown and I are patrol officers. We're working together, we've been working together for years. We're actually good friends still. And we encounter Mr. Hartman here. And for whatever reason, I cracked Mr. Hartman over the head, causing serious injury and thus violating his civil rights. If Mr. Brown don't turn me in and arrest me as a police officer, even if I get off from what I did, he's going to go to jail. Or he at least is going to face charges. And that's part of the program. Let me tell you what the blue line was. The blue line is this, that Mr. Brown and I are working together, I'm using them again, and we encounter Mr. Hartman, but this time Mr. Hartman is armed to the teeth and he means to do harm. The blue line says neither one of us run away. We engage together and we survive together. That's the blue line. Not if I decide to violate his rights, he lies for me. That's not the blue line. That's some bastardized version of it. So I want to change that, I want to clarify it, and I want to get rid of these dysfunctional norms. It's going to take time through attrition, but it can be done because we have moved law enforcement needle very far from where it started. And we could go a little bit further and make it better. I hope I answered your question, sir.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I worked as a nurse for 20 years for the state of New Jersey, and I retired. And I've had the opportunity to work in a lot of community service and with our homeless people. And in our community here, it's a great amount of people. And whose job is it to see that we get what we need to make sure that they're taken care of?
Everybody who's in government. I think that everybody has a responsibility to make sure that we take care of people who need help. Now, and you could probably tell me better than I can tell you, there's a segment of that population that we're just not going to be able to help. We're not going to convince
Right.
them that there's a better way, but it's a small segment. And I think some people, as they're saying, right, that we're only, 3 decisions away from being homeless ourselves?
Correct.
3 bad decisions away, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So the reality here is, we can do more. I pitched an idea about helping fund on a national level communities of small houses to help our homeless population, again, with a hand up. Let's get them off the street. Let's help them get the resources. Let's help them get to employment if that's what they are eligible to do, or disability if they can't. Let's figure out what their mental health needs are, and we could build these communities, allow people to come in and with mental health treatment, with other healthcare components, and help people get off the street. Now, that's one segment of population. We also have ones with families, right? So there's a lot we can do. My job, the way I see it is, if you come up with a plan, my job is to help you fund it.
Okay, because I have a plan.
Now, I'll help you fund it.
And one of them is that we have so many abandoned buildings in Cumberland County, and we are thinking about here at St. Paul of providing a shower here so that a lot of them come here. But what if we had some of these vacant buildings transformed into places where they can take showers and eat? I'm talking about the ones that you're talking about that might not really want our help but need our help, and will come in for a shower or something to eat. I know that we have Code Blue in the winter, but I'm talking about all year round to be able to service the community.
So, ideas like that, and I don't know if the grants exist, but I would definitely try to help you develop a grant for that. Obviously there's a lot of work,
Yeah.
and you have coding issues, and by the way, sometimes cities aren't always in favor of it. And so
know.
when the code inspector comes out, all of a sudden this building that was suitable 2 weeks ago now is just about ready to fall down, right? So we can identify those things and we can help you expose it, use the platform to bring light to it. If there's structural problems with it, find funding to help shore it up. But I will help you in any way I can. I also think that the state has an obligation here, as well as the local government.
Thank you.
Tim, there's a question in the chat. It says, what is your position on legalizing marijuana? From Bill Culver, what is your position on legalizing marijuana?
All right, so the question is, what is my position on legalizing marijuana? The state of New Jersey already has marijuana legalized, right? Recreational marijuana. But it's illegal on a federal level. And folks, when I tell you that that is one of the most antiquated, backwards, ill-conceived laws, I was a narcotic officer. I was on the front line. I'm telling you, I was complicit in enforcing those laws. And I'm going to be very honest with you, it was never a war on drugs. It was always a war on poverty. Plain and simple. And we know from Nixon's guy that it was all smoke and mirrors. So it's time now, right? Because marijuana is Schedule I drug, which means it has no medical purpose at all. And we know that's just not true. So let me be clear. I don't want to take it off the schedule. And I don't know these laws in great detail, but I'll tell you this. My belief is that if we move it down to Schedule 4, it stays on the schedule. So if you have a prescription and you're getting marijuana through your prescription service, you'll continue to be able to do that. Because if we take it completely off the schedule, then it's just an over-the-counter product, and you'll never get your insurance to cover it, right? So let's move it to 4, and then let's totally decriminalize it on a federal level, And then let's take it a step further. Let's get everybody out of jail who's on a marijuana non-violent charge. All right? But then let's take it one more step, because we ruined some of these people's lives, a lot of them. How about we give them an opportunity that if you want to open up a dispensary in your state and it's legal, we will help you through a grant program to get your dispensary going. Now, we have to encourage states, because some states that legalize marijuana says, well, if you have a conviction, you can't get a license, right? So what we're saying is, let's call it Kevin on the block, right? He knows his weed,
That's right.
right? He knows the good stuff versus the crap, right? So, but the government is saying, no, you had a conviction. They just want him out of the way, right? And they want to open it up for some other people, and I don't agree with that. So I want to make sure that on a federal level, whether you have a conviction or not, or I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. If you have a conviction and you serve time, your reciprocity for that attack that started under Nixon is that we're going to give you money to help you open up a dispensary or a grow and get out of your way and let you do your thing. Plain and simple. I hope I answered the question as succinctly as I can, because it's a very passionate issue for me. And the issue is that it should have never, ever been a Schedule I drug. It was an attack on people who look like me. It was an attack on people who grew up in the neighborhoods that I grew up in as a child. Plain and simple. Yes, sir.
Yes, good afternoon, well, good evening. I just want to commend you on the comment that you made concerning EV buses, because I currently work for Cumberland County Human Services, and I have some experience as an outreach worker. And when I used to work throughout Salem County and throughout Cumberland County, one of the main things is busing. As far as for our targeted population, those who face a lot of barriers, they was facing barriers getting to the industrial complex, because the route that the bus run, it stops maybe a mile or two where they will have to walk. And so I think that the idea of new innovation concerning busing and just getting the target population back employed, so that like she was saying, that they don't have to be homeless and get frustrated and want to go and commit crimes. Because here in Cumberland County, we only have one family shelter, and we have a big targeted population. So if we can just, find a better solution for that, that'd be great. But thank you for that.
Well, my pleasure, and I'm going to work with the state to get that done. It is a state level thing. My thing is to bring the money home, to encourage the state. The New Jersey Transit is a hybrid private public entity, but to get them to understand the need in CD2 for outside the box thinking, and if we cut their costs to get it done, then why not, right? Work with us and we'll work with you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, how you doing? My name is Jeff Lindsay. Before I get to Tim, Gail, and anybody else that's in here, we have an organization that's called Right My Wrongs. And Right My Wrongs. Sorry if you know what's gonna hear me. Right My Wrongs. So now, Right My Wrongs, we're doing the same thing that you're talking about, helping the homeless people. I think one thing we start doing is waiting too much. So now what we're doing, we're taking it upon ourselves to get anything we need to go for our communities going. We always looking for help. So since we are like-minded, you can come, because the faster we get this up and running, the faster we can start addressing the problem with the solutions. It's good to get the funding from, our local officials, but one thing about that is a process. And sometimes that process, while we're waiting, someone is dying, someone is homeless. See, so all these problems that we keep waiting for, these people don't have the luxury of waiting. So us as citizens, concerned citizens, we have to band together. And no disrespect to Tim, these guys say the right things at the right time. And they come around, I'm not saying Tim, but usually these politicians come around at one time. We are living this all the time. So while they're waiting, our people are hurting. And to their dismay, if we're not really putting money into the campaign, and the people that are donating the most money to these campaigns, if If that's not on their agenda, and not saying Tim, but a lot of these people are doing what the campaign, people are donating the big money to the campaign want them to do. So now, this is how certain laws get passed that are not conducive to our community. It's a lot of things that's going on in our community. I think that the elected officials are not putting the community in on. And the next thing you know, things are going on. So to you, if I was you, I would get with us that's already, and like-minded people that are already doing things. Our strength is in unity. We just had Unity Day that which, thank you, Ms. Tim Alexander, he donated money to. So we already know he's trying to make a difference in our community. But are you going to be one of those politicians? Because I heard some of the things you're saying about the FBI and this, you know, and this is debatable because the CIA is the reason why cocaine is in our communities. They already admitted it with Rick Ross. So they sold drugs to fund the war. They sent guns and stuff still to our communities. And this is this.
That was Reagan. That was.
The Iran-Contra.
Exactly. So these. It doesn't matter when it was back. See what? And this is the thing we talking about. It happened. So they may be doing a better job of covering up because there's a war going on as we speak right now that we may be funding. So I'm trying to wake our community up. So yes, there's many reasons to fund the FBI, the CIA, and any law enforcement agency at that matter. They're trying to make strides, but it's still a thin blue line.
Well, let me answer some of that.
Yes, sir.
Because we don't agree on everything, right? That's
Right.
clear. And when it comes to, let me just take.
But not to cut you off, we can't disagree on facts. So it is a fact that you just said that did happen. The CIA did.
Not going there.
Oh,
All right. I hear you. I agree with you. That we have, and as I said, it was never a war on drugs, right? Okay, and I think we agree on that.
yes.
So let me take, you have a lot of stuff there, so let me take it in pieces. About being in the community. One of the things I promised and pledged to do is come back to these meetings, town hall meetings, and I hope they get bigger. And I hope they get more inclusive. Because you don't have to agree with me to be in this room. Case in point, right? I'd rather you come and you tell me you don't agree with me, tell me why you don't agree with me, because maybe in there I could pull a nugget of good out of it, and I could use it to help all of us, right? So yeah, we're gonna have town hall meetings, we're gonna have them regularly. Yeah, we're gonna have work groups. I've been talking about this for over a year. These work groups are gonna be specialized in different areas, whether it be healthcare or religion or education, so that I don't have to operate in a vacuum. Folks, I don't have all the answers. I am not the smartest guy in the room. I admit my shortcomings. I don't know about a lot of things. In fact, I don't even know what I don't know. That's how much I don't know. But the reality here is, you all know different things. First Lady knows a little bit about homeless in this town. So why would I want to have a homeless program without sitting down with her and find out what she thinks? And she's going to bring other people to the table, and we're going to have a lively discussion. But then when it comes to health care, I'm going to get some healthcare people together and say, okay, what do you think about this bill? And you know, now sometimes Congress moves fast, and they'll say, okay, we got to vote on something right away because we have a window of opportunity. I'm not talking about those times. I'm talking about 99% of the time when they move at a snail's pace. And we could get the bills back to our work groups and they could give me some feedback. So yeah, I'll stay in the community because that's where I'm from. And I'm going to stay in your face because I want to hear what you got to say. Again, I think defunding the police, defunding the FBI is a terrible idea. You don't. But we're good with that. We're good with that.
I didn't say defunding was good or bad. I was just saying off of you said it was.
Fair enough. I didn't mean to put words in your mouth.
Right, it was ludicrous.
From me,
I'm
though,
saying
I think it's a bad
that
idea.
He does have warrants in what he was saying.
I get you.
About the police department.
So let me just say this though, and I wanted to hit a couple of your points. I'm not a sometimey politician. I'm going to be here. You probably get sick of seeing me. You're going to probably wonder.
Let's hope so.
You're going to wonder why I'm not in Washington where everybody else is. Well, and that's what I wanted to hit on. You talked about special interests, right? Special interest funding.
Right.
And a lot of my opponent has millions of dollars in the bank. I do not. I do not have those corporate donors. We have pledged from the beginning not to take corporate donations. Now, would love to run an ad on TV, but I won't be able to, because I don't take that kind of money. I would love to do a lot more to reach a lot more people to make sure that I have a great chance of winning this race. But you know how we're going to win? We're going to win through grassroots, through this group, who's going to go out, each and every one of you are going to talk to 20 people. And you're going to tell 20 people, I heard this guy speak, and I think you should vote for him. And now we just, expanded that group times 20 times everyone in this room. And that goes out. And as long as it keeps expanding, we win. And I don't need those corporate dollars. I don't need those TV ads that nobody watch anyway. All right?
But like I said, that sounds good now, but once you get into that position and then you find out how the rules are played for your counterparts, and now they asking you to do things, will you be one of those politicians that stands up, that stands alone, that goes against and holds these people accountable? The FBI, the CIA, the police department.
Well, in case you missed the intro, I'm a civil rights attorney, so yeah, I pretty much do that. But that aside.
No, I mean, we all laughing and he's saying.
No, I'm serious. I'm dead serious though.
Let me say one thing. We all said laughing and we saying this and that civil rights attorney. But even going through that system to be a lawyer, you have to go get their grants and their degrees. So you have some type of loyalty to them. So now, at what point that you're going to say, well, my moral, because this is where it comes in moral. We know what's right and wrong of what says, the law says, but what's the moral thing of it? So now, when you sit here morally, and now you sit with your counterparts, you may not take that money to misallocate funds, but like you said with Mr. Brown, when you were using him as an example with the cop, and if you do something, he's supposed to stand up. Okay, so what about politicians? I know other politicians misallocate funds and do things, and they get away with it, and or should you be held accountable for that too?
Well, I think so. You know how you hold me
Exactly.
accountable?
So
You hold me accountable by not voting for me, by voting me out of office. So there is a level of accountability that you can do right now.
Under the rug. It's more like a conspiracy. Because my theory is this: for the communities to come up, the government has to come down. The government has their hands in too much things that are not conducive to the community, like just the prison system. Some of the people that you funding might support the prison system. Now you come about, this is why you may not want to talk about the funding of the police. How we know your donors or not? That's what they want you to run on, to fund the police or more policing. So we have to be mindful. Do you have stock in some of these prisons?
Your allies.
Well, hold on one second, because I don't want to get into a tit for tat. I think your points are well taken.
Right.
Let's take them offline.
Okay.
All right, and let's continue the conversation.
Right. Now this is not online.
No, me and you offline,
Oh,
not
okay.
that.
Oh, okay, I got you.
All right.
I'm respectful.
Now, this gentleman was waiting, and I'll come back around.
I'm part of the Right My Wrongs organization,
Yes, sir.
and I mean what Mr. Lindsay's saying is correct. I mean, for us to have confidence in what you're saying, like this is, you're going to be running. We just opened it. This like we can guarantee if you for our peoples or what's going on out here, then you want to have our vote. You're gonna have what you need to win. If you behind, not when you win, but before that, you got to be committed to this community before you win. So we know what you're doing. If you for us, now you get up there and things change. That's what he's saying.
I
If
get
things
you,
change-
but I can't be condemned before the action happens.
No, true
right?
indeed, true indeed.
All right. So what's happening right here tonight?
Yes.
I'm from this community, and I'm in this community, and I'm talking to the community. Now, if that changes, if I lose my way, then you can call me out.
Okay.
And when we come back here, you can say, you stood there in August of 2022 saying X, Y, and Z, and you didn't do it. I guarantee you won't get the opportunity to do it, but you can, all right?
Like I said, I can't, all I'm saying is right now with me, and this is for anybody that's in the room, the power is in the people.
That's right.
Okay? So now we all have to stand up and not just hold these people accountable, we have to hold ourselves
I
accountable. So
couldn't-
now,
couldn't
instead
agree
of
with
us
you more.
waiting for anything, we have to be more proactive instead of reactive. So now meaning that after things happen, then we're out protesting, we're out doing things. it's always something going on in our communities not conducive to us that we can be doing. I'm thinking more of having grocery stores. I'm thinking more of us being inventors as all United States Americans. We are not in the race, period. They're standing up here, we do no production here, we're not producing anything. Apple has a phone, Samsung, this is Chinese. They have the Nissan cars, and then we have American cars. But we're not producing anything now. So now our children are growing up playing games and just trying to be athletes, but we're not using our money. We have to focus on how can we have the community be more economical to themselves and conducive, instead of the big companies that are buying up all the property. And this is what's happening right up underneath our noses. The big companies, they're devaluing our property. They're letting it go down, like 4th Street, that's unacceptable how they have the pool and all that. But that's by design, because they can blight the zone, and then they can buy your property for cheap and write out your history.
Well,
That's all I'm saying.
brother,
All I'm saying-
I got your message, but I'm gonna move on because I wanna make sure everybody have an opportunity.
Yep.
But I'm not going anywhere, you and I can talk afterwards.
Yes.
Helen got one, she's been waiting, then Helen.
This is the first time I've been at a town meeting. I am not really politically involved. So my question is, but I do watch the news. So my question is on defunding the police. To me, defunding the police, now maybe I'm understanding it wrong, so I'm gonna say maybe, but to me, defunding the police is stopping all of the, I think where the defunding needs to go on the areas where they don't advocate the money where it's not needed, that's what you take away, and then put the money in the police where it is needed. So am I wrong for thinking that way, or
I
is
think
it they
that-
talk about cutting out money for the police altogether?
Well, there's two schools of thought there. There is one, what you're saying, that it's not about defunding, general law enforcement. It's about taking money where it's wasted and applying it to, say, mental health outreach and drug addiction counseling. I think we could walk and chew gum together, folks. And my plan has mental health and drug addiction component built into it that is being funded through the incentives that I want to bring about. It's not taking away necessarily from the law enforcement perspective, because it's a tight budget. I can tell you that as being a person who ran a budget. It's a tight budget already. But there's some things we can do, and one of which is demilitarize our police. And we start with that program. That's not going to change a whole lot because a lot of that equipment's free anyway. Well, it's free to acquire, you still have to maintain it. That being said, I want to make sure our officers have the money, but I also want to make sure that we have mental health components out there and we have drug addiction components out
And if
there.
you talk about taking money away, then you're gonna
Well, we're gonna add money to make sure we have those things. So it's not necessarily reallocating money, it's enhancing funding to make sure that we get the things that we want in our communities. And we want that in our communities.
and that message needs to be clear.
I hope it
Because
is.
somebody like me can be confused because of the two.
Sure. Now, there's some people who just flat out want to defund the police. I'm not taking away from them either. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now you're gonna hear from an old lady
Okay. All right.
who's 82 years old. And what I find is that some of the problems that we're talking about, some of the problems that you're talking about, in the 60s, we had people in the street, okay? We also, though, had an organization that allowed us to develop programs for housing, for the poor, daycare, Head Start. All those problems came because there were angry young men, wonderful angry young men who were willing to put their lives and march and argue and stand up in front of local politicians. The problems that you are talking about, people, many of them can be solved on the local level. But we are not out there voting. Now, you can talk about all the problems that you want here. He can talk about all the solutions. But we are in a place in our country that is dangerous.
That's right.
We have an undergrowth in this country that wants black folks brown folk and women to be second-class citizens, or even better, to go back where we came from, all right? That has got to stop, and the only way it will stop is if we have grassroots organizations, and I give you a lot of credit for starting that.
I'm 80 years old and I'm her husband and I'm proud of her. and this is the only chance I'm going to get to talk. But she's right. I mean, the war on poverty, every community had community action offices funded, all right? But I'm going to say this, and I'm not trying to blow smoke or compliment you unworthy. You're the best chance we have had in the last 50 years. I mean, I go back to Congressman Sandman from Canton. We've had Lo Biondo, we've had all this stuff, all right? And I've been campaigning since '08. So what I'm really concerned about is how in the hell do we get you to win? That's my
You nailed it, right? Yeah, your wife nailed it. We win through grassroots. Folks, it is not enough for you. You're here on a Monday night. You're community leaders. You could be anywhere right now, other than the basement at a church. But you're here because you are involved. You're a leadership, every single one of you. You are the ones who go out and get people motivated to vote. The alternative to doing nothing is nothing. You have the same problems over and over again. I am not advocating or promoting that I will solve everybody's problem, not even close. But I will fight for you. I will fight for you every opportunity I have. Every day I'm in Congress, I will fight to bring money home to our district, to protect every single human being, regardless of their gender, regardless of their orientation, and regardless of their skin color. And that's what you ought to demand from every level politician. This has to be a long game, by the way, folks. When we talk about running, I talk about running for Congress, I'm talking about 2022, 2024, 2026. I am playing a long game, and I need you to do the same. Don't be so focused on 2022 that 2024 comes and goes and we're back in trouble again. We have to be focused on every single level. School boards, council, assembly, senate, Congress, senate, and the presidency. Every single level has to be hit. And if you vote for dog catcher in your town, you ought to concentrate on that too. Because the reality here is that the Republicans were successful in the long game. And that's why they're burning books, banning books anyway. Think about that. Under the guise of, oh, they're teaching CRT. You know, I just say to this, I've tried to go to some of these meetings and I can't make them all. But I just want one parent, to come to the podium and say, my child learned CRT yesterday. It doesn't exist. But yet we have whole movements over this thing. And it's all a part of making, using their words, America great again. And when you start using the word again, I get scared. Because back in the day, things weren't so good for people who look like me. They weren't good for women. Or like you.
White women, okay, women of all colors, and they want to bring it back to
Make
the
America
white
great
men.
again.
That's where we
And
go
if
again.
that doesn't scare you, then you don't understand what they're saying.
And you know what? They
Our-
weaponize stuff. They weaponize, like, they don't even know. Do you know where the whole term woke came from? It came from a musician, Leadbelly, who told people basically it was wake yourself up, you better be awake. And that's how woke came.
I do know that, because I know my history in this country.
All it means is wake up.
Right, and that's what we're talking about.
Weaponizing it as if it's like some secret code
Right.
that Black Lives Matter has to go around and kill white
And
people.
I respect that you use the term weaponized, but I like to use the term they bastardize it. Because that never was what it's about. You're 100% correct in your understanding of history. And that, folks, is the problem. That they don't want you to know the history. You know, I've learned all kind of atrocious things, and I never once looked at my neighbor and said, you're to blame for it. It's a false argument. It doesn't have any merit. But listen, let me get back to you. Helen, you got a question, please, or from the audience?
Well, actually, not so much a question, but a statement. It takes a lot of courage, and we have not had a representative from this congressional district from southern New Jersey for decades. Decades that was willing to hold a town hall meeting, that was willing to stand in front of everybody and listen to whatever you wanted to ask him. And this man has the courage to do it. And we need someone in this district that will
And I want to answer that because my campaign manager sits here and he takes so much abuse from me, and I love him for it. I was invited to go to a right-wing radio show, and he asked me was I out of my mind, and ultimately we did it. And if you guys, does anybody know who Seth Grossman is?
Oh, gosh.
He's the one who interviewed. He interviewed me.
No way.
And, oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And Seth Grossman. And you know what? The reason why I did it is because I'm not running from anybody. If the racist bastard wants to interview me, let me go ahead and get on this show and be interviewed by him. And I'll answer his questions because I got nothing to be afraid of. I'm for the people. I will work for you because I'm for myself. I live here too. And I benefit from the work I do. So why would I be against my own interests? I'm not a rich person. I don't think I ever will be. Unless my wife's got that lottery ticket, and she should.
You better have
But
it.
you know, the reality in our house is a multi-billion-dollar lottery, and we both say, "Did you remember to play?" No. All right, next time we're gonna win. So, but here's the reality: we work, we put in a lot of hours, and we're willing to continue the work because it's in our interest to take care of our home. So if that rings true, and it is, then of course I'm going to work hard in Congress because this is also my home. CD2. I met my wife over at the McDonald's right here on Delsey Drive. Many of you know that crazy story. Well, we ended up getting married anyway. And we had our first two children right here at Newcomb Hospital on South State Street, and then the third one over in Galloway Township. And we've been married for 35 years. This is our home. My wife grew up right in Shell. This is our home. We will fight for this district. Some of my best friends in the world are sitting in that back row. Those four people. And they're here supporting me because, and I love them for it, but they know all my secrets. And I pay them dearly to keep them quiet. But through that, Mrs. Brown, yes?
I have a question pertaining to infrastructure.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have anything in plan for Millville Airport and bringing in some type of transit from the 322 or Route 40 into Mays Landing, into the industrial development to increase more jobs out there? We have it here in Vineland. The route is off of 55. Trucks can come off, but there's nothing in place for Mays Landing, which is the county seat, and the industrial park sits there.
So I don't have any plans for Millville Airport, but I'm always open to hear anybody has. I will tell you that I am eyeballing Route 55 to continue that all the way down to alleviate the traffic on the expressway and the parkway. And that, you know, there's two prongs. One, to have, and by the way, there's no emergency evacuation route on that side of Cape May County. So 55 going all the way down to Cape May or connecting to the parkway would be a way for people to get out of there when a natural disaster occurs or some other disaster. So I'm looking at that. But as far as expanding over into Atlantic County with Route 40, I'll be honest with you, it hasn't come across my radar, but if somebody proposes an idea and it's something that collectively we think we should do, then why wouldn't we do it? The expansion of the bus routes, I think, would be helpful. And if we can get this light rail, and I'll tell you that there's, even though I'm live on Facebook, there's ulterior motive to getting that light rail going into Atlantic City, because I like to go the other way too, and then shoot off and come this way, so that we can actually have transportation, rail transportation from Cumberland County all the way into Atlantic City or to Philadelphia. To me, that, again, something should have been done decades ago, and I don't know why it hasn't.
Yeah, because having something come straight down the medium of 55 will alleviate a lot of short traffic. and people trying to get to and from work from Atlantic City or any of these parts of Philadelphia.
Couldn't agree with you more. And, you know, that could even be a private-public partnership. Because again, you remember, I'm not, as long as we have DOT funds to do it, I'm not going to advocate anything that's going to increase our taxes. But, that being said, we have plenty of money for the next 9 years to get a lot of these projects done. We just got to fight for that money, because everybody's clawing at it. There are 12 congressional districts in the state of New Jersey. 10 of them are controlled by Democrats, 2 are by Republicans, and our guy doesn't work. So all that money is so used to flowing up north. It's time for us to get our lion's share, and it's going to be a whole new ball game come November 9th or whenever they swear me in. Right here.
I think what they did with the Millville Airport was a complete blunder. That's such a large runway. It could have been used for a parcel transportation hub, and it just could have been commerce. That's just a complete blunder. Yeah. Amazon could have been flying their planes in and out of there, and derail down the middle of 55. Another blunder. Cornell had all that land alongside of 42. It was just raw land, and the I forget the organization that built the speed line, but they refused to buy that land off of them because they said it was a conflict of interest. But that whole, where all their shopping centers, Cornell was on that board, and they wouldn't buy the land off of them, and so that put that nail in that coffin many years back, when they were building 55. And I think the president is going through with education. I think we live and die by education. Communities, I mean, and it's a fine line. It's always a difficult line between making it inflationary. You know, if you help and you forgive loans here, is that going to raise tuitions? So it's always what you do, but we're forgiving loans from the PPE from all these businesses, and they can do that. I think forgiving loans is, it's a small price compared to what they're giving to the businesses.
That's it. Unfortunately, that program is going to be very divisive in our party, because when I heard about it first, I said, you need to have funding for the trades. You need to not just be continued as rescuing people who are going to college, and it's got to be expanded.
Well, I think it's important.
We're already putting ads on the paper showing working people saying that they're funding other people's college education.
I think it's important though to frame that correctly.
Yes.
That we're not giving people free college education. We're helping poor people obtain college education without lifelong crushing debt. And by the way, $10,000, not a lot of money. All right.
The only thing is, people are not going to stand around and listen for that explanation. They're going to go with whatever appeals to their emotions, and they're going to come out of this and say, the Republicans are already doing that in terms of saying this is going to be an elitist program. Look what the hell is his name anyway? It's going to be used against us.
Without a doubt. And you know one thing, I'll if I give Republicans credit for anything, they're great at messaging, right? They can sell crap to a pig farm, right? And let me tell you this. It's up to us to frame it the way it is. This is to help poor people. This is to help people who don't have the benefit of a Harvard trust fund, or endowment, excuse me, that they graduate college without any debt. This is for people who went to a local school, maybe not a D1 school, and their first person in their family to go to college, and we're helping them out because that debt blocks people from building generational wealth. And this is not a huge help, by the way, but it is a bit of a hand up, and let's call it what it is, but let's make sure that we recognize that we're helping poor people. So with that being said, tell the truth. Let's frame it the way it should be framed.
Can I ask a question about that? Because my husband and I have been arguing about this.
Sure.
All right? I understand that that applies to students who went to community colleges. All right? They had Pell Grants, they had loans, correct? Is that not true?
If you have a Pell Grant, I think you get a little bit more.
Okay, now, if you went to a vocational school, a lot of kids decided, you know, they were going to take nursing or computer science or so forth, and they were privately owned. Sometimes they were a ripoff, but the kids went out and got loans. Doesn't this law apply to them also?
I believe it's based on your economic status.
I'm
So,
sorry?
it's based on your economic status. If you,
No, but I mean, if you didn't have to go to a four-year college, is my point.
No, you didn't.
You
no,
didn't, right?
no, not at all.
Right.
It's on your economic status, not where you went to school.
All right, but what's happening and I think this is a mistake, and I agree with my husband on this point, is they're not saying that. So a lot of people think that they're only applying to people who went to four-year school. And that is not true, and we have to spread that word.
I couldn't agree with you more. That we just don't frame the things the way they're intended to
But
be.
the commercial that I saw last night shows a plumber saying, why don't they pay for my truck instead of me making me pay for somebody else's degree? And that's the way it's getting sold out there.
Yeah, well, they're playing on. You're right. You said it earlier. They're playing on people's emotions, right? And they're trying to get people again to be divided in this country. And you know, I'm not sure if you said it or someone over here said it about the Pell Grant, but if you think about what is a Pell Grant, that means you're poor, right? I qualified for a Pell Grant when I first graduated college, and I still didn't have enough money to go, so I became a police officer. But the reality here is, if you and we tell the truth that if you hear the word Pell Grant, you know what that means. It means that you're economically depressed.
So that means like our kids would not get help if their parents make a certain amount of money.
That
They're
means my
basing
kids
it
do not
on
get
our
help.
parents.
Right.
Yeah, yours are. I know if yours ain't, mine ain't. So, but I wanted to ask about how you felt on gun control, and I also wanted to know about what our government is doing about this fentanyl that is killing our children. I mean, in the state of Birmingham, we have lost 9 members of our family under the age of 40 to fentanyl. And then here in New Jersey, I know at least 8 people who have lost their children because of fentanyl that is on our streets and being mishandled, and people not knowing that, you know, they're even dealing with it. And what is our government doing about that?
So let's talk about gun control first, and then we can talk about fentanyl. With respect to gun control, I am not opposed to legal, lawful ownership of weapons. I have guns, my wife has a gun, and we like to shoot. But when we talk about gun control, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about illegal guns and getting them off the street. We're talking about AR-15s or other military-style weapons, keeping them off the streets, or at least in New Jersey, because they're outlawed here. All right, and I'm gonna tell you, as a homicide detective, and I'll tell you my career before I got rank, I worked 3 units my entire career. Narcotics, from narcotics I went to gangs, from gangs I went to homicide, and then I rinsed and repeat and did it all over again. And as I moved up in rank, I kept bouncing to one of those 3 units. I have seen, folks, the effects of a .223 round on a human body. I'm one of the fortunate ones, I've never seen a child shot with one, and I pray I never do. But I can tell you a human body is mutilated to a point that you cannot tell who that person is. There's a reason why we use these guns in war. They take off arms, they take off limbs. They destroy the human face. Why on earth were they ever allowed to be on the streets of the United States is beyond me. So when you want to talk about gun control, if it's about AR-15s and their brothers and sisters, I'm all for banning them. I'm all for it. Yes, sir.
I think you have to break the insane argument that didn't come about until, I believe, in the 50s, that gun ownership is linked to the Second Amendment. I've read that, and they must have been short on periods when they wrote the Constitution. The run-on sentences are insane for any non-English major to understand completely. But I'll read that over and over and over again, and it's meant for militias. And we have the state National Guards, but we cannot we have to break that argument that your gun ownership is linked to the Second Amendment.
I think that you're right, that it has been repurposed, the original intent, because of course they didn't have the type of weapons we have today. But there are limitations anyway, right? You can't own a bazooka. You can't own a fighter jet. You know, if you could.
That's more what it's about. It's
right.
more about the rocket grenades, and that's what they're talking about.
And the point I'm getting at is, folks, that we have adopted a core belief of the Second Amendment that says that I own a pistol or a shotgun or a rifle. It's my constitutional rights. Okay, that's what it is. But you're right. It doesn't mean you go own anything and everything. It clearly doesn't say it. It says it's for a well-regulated militia. I believe those are exact words. So we know that the Supreme Court has made some rulings and we are where we are today, but how on earth did we get assault weapons in there is beyond me. Because we don't have them on the streets in New Jersey legally. And when we talk about gun control, back to the question, it's about removing those guns. And by the way, we have to get rid of those guns in Pennsylvania and everywhere else because they end up on the streets of New Jersey. And then I stand in front of you and I tell you what they do as far as carnage on the human body. If they were illegal everywhere, and there's actual data that show that when we had the ban in 92, that after that ban was lifted, those type of weapons, the use of those weapons skyrocketed. So there is a cause and effect here, and if we could get those weapons off the street and everything associated, the 223s, the 706, get those guns off the street, I know we have evidence to show that we'd be safer and our lives would be better. And what I don't understand is why police departments aren't screaming to the top of their lungs to get rid of these guns. Because a 223 round would go through a standard issue vest like butter. Like butter, folks. Like you wasn't wearing anything at all. So those guns don't belong on the streets. Our officers are not safe, and we are not safe. We can't go to grocery stores. We can't pray in churches. We have to worry about every single gathering we have that somebody's going to come in. It just happened the other day. A guy walked through the mall and killed 2 people with an assault weapon before taking his own life. So the reality here is that we have to get these weapons off the street, and it is an urgent cause. Now, to your, I'm sorry, one more piece. Your second part about fentanyl, I'm not, there yet with the government, so I can't really get into what they're doing, what they're not doing, because I'm like you. I scratch my head a lot of times when we talk about fentanyl imports and why we can't capture this. And maybe part of that has to do with the fact that we're so, not everybody, but a lot of our politicians are so focused on brown people coming over the border that they miss the things that are actually hurting us. The fentanyl coming across the border. What if the effort was that instead of trying to get somebody fleeing war zone or where their children are going to be made into prostitutes, instead of targeting them, how about we target the drug people coming through? Because people coming across the border with babies don't necessarily mean that they're carrying drugs. Right. And there's this thing called intelligence, that we have organizations that can tell us where these drugs are coming through, and then we could target that. And maybe that goes back to this gentleman's point that we tend to not focus on what we need to be focused on for nefarious reasons. I'm not buying into that as a conspiracy theory. I'm saying facts, right? And the facts are that the drugs are coming on the streets, and it don't seem like we're fighting or doing enough to keep those drugs off the streets. And we know that when those drugs hit certain neighborhoods, then all of a sudden it becomes priority number 1. Well, we need it to be priority number 1 in every neighborhood, all the time.
I did see on the news today that they have test strips in certain communities or areas that allow you to determine whether or not your drug is laced with fentanyl. I did see that on the news today, so I don't know where it will be
distributed, but I did see that stat.
It's interesting.
And then
Yes,
the
ma'am.
other thing is
Oh.
the cocaine and heroin is being intermixed, and people are having, strokes. Cocaine strokes is what they're calling it now. And probably has been going on a long time, but it's a lot of it going on now, and people are losing their children, you know, to becoming bedridden because they thought they were getting heroin and they had cocaine, and it was labeled heroin, but it was cocaine, and it's just, this drug thing is just out of control.
Well, it always has been because we've been targeting the wrong people. Again, it was never a war on drugs. It was a war on poor people. So we reframe this, and we actually want to do some work on drugs, and we want to bring that intelligence community into play on drugs. I think we can make a big dent. Yes, ma'am.
I just had a follow-up question on your comments on guns. So for the banning of assault rifles, I agree, I think that's common sense. Do you have any additional measures to the bill that passed recently, like safe storage or increasing the age of ownership, to enhance some of that? I mean, in New Jersey, we have pretty stringent controls, but I think something like 78% of guns used to commit crimes in this state are from outside of this state, so it just seems like there's some additional holes at the federal level.
And that's a great point. And one of the things I've said in the beginning, and I'll say it here now, if we could take New Jersey gun laws and model them for the country, it'd be a better country. We have some of the best laws when it comes to not just guns, but ammunitions. And when we talk about statistics on gun use, it is pretty high. But let's not forget that it is the preferred weapon for suicide. So if we take some of these illegal guns out of play, maybe we can actually save some people's lives that would hurt themselves. So there's so much that we can do, and I couldn't agree with you more. That I do agree with a lot of the provisions in the most recent gun bill. And you're right, safe storage and criminalizing it when you fail to do so, I think it's necessary. Again, not picking on New Jersey because we're pretty tight. But some of these other areas where, you know, we've probably all seen the Facebook pictures of you know, family shopping in a grocery store and mom's got an AR-15 over her shoulder. It's absolutely absurd.
Well, and to your point with suicides, or also, I mean, preventable gun violence has become the #1 fatality for children. And a lot of that is because firearms aren't properly secured in homes, and these kids have access to them, they don't know what they are, they don't know if they're toys, or they do, and they have access to a gun, and it just doesn't seem there, and it's so easily preventable.
Yeah, like when you know, we heard a story not too long ago, right? It was about 6 months ago, a child got a hold of a gun and killed mom, you know, a toddler. So if that doesn't wake you up, I don't know what does, but it doesn't seem like a lot wake up some of our members in government. Yes, ma'am.
So let's say you win this race, we're all happy, and now you're in Congress. So what is your strategy to work with some of these people, not even just the middle of the road people at the far right that inevitably are going to win some of these races? What is your strategy to work with people in Congress?
So let me expand your question a little bit, because there is a strategy. When I win, I will be a freshman congressman. And what they're going to want me to do is go sit on the bench, and they'll let me know what I'm supposed to vote for, right? And that's just not going to fly with me. I'm too old and too cantankerous for that. So what I've done already is I've made relationships. I've formed relationships with serving members, not just in our state, but across the country. Eric Salwell over in California, Andre Carson in Indiana, Arizona we have a relationship with. Building relationships, of course, in our coalition right here in New Jersey. My plan for when I come in and the things that I want to get done, I don't have an ego that I have to feed. I don't care whose name's on the bill, as long as it's a bill for us. So I'll go to one of these senior members, long-serving members, and give them, all the work's going to be done. The only thing I need them to do is put their name on it, and then I could co-sign along with it. I'm totally okay with that, and I don't care who they are. And if we have to go and work with some I'm not going to work with the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world. It's never going to happen. But there are moderates over there in the Republican Party, and I'm okay with working with moderates, people who want to advance our lives, because we're going to help them out and they're going to help us out. And I fully intend to work with those people. There's no blue ideas, red ideas with me. Remember, everything I have is for everybody. So I will work with anybody who's going to help me get the bill through committee, get it to the floor for a vote, and then help me advocate for getting it passed.
Tim, do you have any particular health committees that you want to be appointed to?
So the question was, do I have any committees I want to be appointed to? And of course I want to get on infrastructure. But I also want to get on ethics. I think that's in my wheelhouse of setting the rules committee. So those are three that I would like to get on. But I'll know my place when I get there, and I'll do my willing and dealing to get where I think is going to best benefit this district. And I believe getting on infrastructure would be one of those places. Appropriations would be nice.
Yes.
I got a probably better chance of hitting that lottery, right, hon? But eventually we'll get there. And the reality here is that everything I'm looking at is going to be what will help me in this district. Yes, sir. Oh. Okay, looks like we're running out of time. I hope I got everybody's questions. One more?
Well, I think this is more for your campaign manager. Are you receiving any endorsements from the trade unions, from the unions?
We have retail workers, retail, wholesale, department store workers. We have Local 54, and we have some that are pending that I can't say until it's finalized.
About 351?
I don't think so. No.
351.
So we've gotten New Jersey. We got through New Jersey and JEA. In fact, we apparently did better than any other candidate in the history. But we're just waiting for national now. 95%, I think, or 96%, 98%, or something pass rate with the state. So we're doing great there. Teachers like to put you on some kind of score, right? So.
Trade unions is a little.
Well, the trade unions. So, and let's talk about that, because Jeff, his trade-off of voting for infrastructure, bipartisan infrastructure, was to get the trade unions. So a lot of them endorsed him. But what they don't realize is that each year this bill has to be funded, right? Congress has to fund. Jeff voted against the 2023 funding of the bipartisan infrastructure funding. So he voted for the bill, and then he voted not to fund it. And that's absolutely absurd. And that's, again, one of those things that we got to tell people about, particularly these unions who endorsed him. Here's your buddy who took care of you, right? He voted for it, and then he voted not to fund it. That's absolutely insane. So I just want to say in closing, folks, I appreciate you coming out here, spending some time with me. I look forward to doing this again. We're going to spread it around the district, so I don't know if we'll make it back to Vineland before the election. But even after the election, I will be doing these town halls. I hope they get bigger. I hope they get more diverse. And I mean by parties and not just the people, because it's a beautiful crowd here. And the reality here is I have nothing to hide or run from. I will always, always take questions. And thank you all again for coming out.
We would like to thank you for coming out. This is not Tim's first time, it's not his second time, it's not his third time being here. So we appreciate your availability and your willingness to come before the people and face us and answer our questions. We truly appreciate that. I just want to say that I'm excited that we have a candidate that we can be excited about.
Thank you.